Okay, we're back at Cracks in Postmodernity, and we are doing another Q&A pod. So thanks to all of you who sent in your questions. Here we go. We're going to start with AJ, big friend of the pod, who says, here's my possibly controversial question. Does culture inevitably wither or become diluted when you, and then your kids, and then your grandkids start a family with someone of a different culture? If so, is it something to be avoided, celebrated, or neither, or it depends? Yeah, the simple answer is yes. It's inevitable that your culture is going to be diluted. I think that's just natural. I think it's natural first, just in terms of um, yeah, like with each coming generation, they're going to lose part of the culture. But then if you're marrying someone else, accelerates that process of assimilation. And I say that as someone who is bi or tricultural, I guess. Yeah, because like I saw, especially when I would go to the Greek church, like the other Greek kids who both of their parents were Greek, especially if they were from Greece, were like much more rooted in the culture. They spoke fluently. They went to Greece every summer, and I, was made to feel less Greek than them because I had an Italian father. Is that something to be avoided? I mean, no, it depends. I think it depends on what your values are. Like, if you really want to immerse your kids in your culture, then you probably are not going to want to marry somebody of a different background. Um, or like, I don't know. Also, if you're like your personality or your, I don't know, like your family circumstances are going to make it really hard for you to be with someone of a different background. That's something to consider. But that being said, like I personally enjoy having the Greek, Italian plus Armenian fusion. I think, having the greatest civilizations uh in my roots is like, I don't know, I think it's a net positive. But yeah, like it will take more work to really inculcate a sense of cultural pride in your kid if you marry someone of a different culture. And you're gonna, I mean, you have to encourage them to find ways to like merge, to meld the best of each culture so that they don't just like give up on both of them and just become assimilated. But again, depends on your values and like how you teach your kids what you want them to value. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's mostly neutral, but either way, you should try to raise your kids with whatever a sense of like rootedness in whatever your background is. Okay, next we have an audio question. Someone left a voice message through Instagram. Let's listen to it.
Hi, my name's Alex. I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada, 23 years old. I go to the community college down here. I was just wondering what your opinion is on ethical non-voting. I feel like the correct opinion, trademark TM, is to go out and get out the vote and register to vote and drive your friends to go vote. It feels really dirty. Like both candidates are terrible people, and it. I don't want to support a genocide. I don't want to be like giving my consent for either party to be in power. So I guess that's my very timely and topical question, and I wonder if I'll regret this in 3 or 4 months when whatever candidate wins. But yeah, I just wanted to hear your opinion on the matter.
Yeah, so we kind of addressed Alex's question in the Dorothy Day piece that we put out a little while ago. Yeah, I mean, obviously, abstaining from voting is like a valid thing as a matter of conscience. Like if you do it because you're lazy and don't feel like voting, or if you do it because like out of this kind of self-indulgent idealism, yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of BS. But like if you really do the work, really engaging your conscience and your values, if you look at all of the factors at play and you decide it would be best for you to abstain, awesome. Dorothy Day did that. I mean, she advocated for women's right to vote and then never voted for president ever in her life. That being said, she did vote for local politicians. But yeah, I mean, if you abstain with good reasons, like, I think you need to also understand that um, especially since you're not voting. Like, you better be really active in, I don't know, like, you better take your political responsibility really seriously by doing like hands-on kind of work, like being very much involved in some kind of political engagement, especially on the local level. So I think, yeah, abstention as a cop out is, morally reprehensible. But yeah, like, I don't know. That being said, all of us should be doing kind of hands-on direct action. Like, we shouldn't just settle for like, we can't reduce our political responsibility to voting for president. I mean, it's a minuscule aspect. So yeah, a very important question. Okay, Meg asks, how would you respond to academic Bible scholars who say that some things, such as the Immaculate Conception, are not Bible based? I know the church follows both scripture and tradition, but apologetics always say that all Marian dogmas are biblically based. I mean, Jesus was not Bible based. Like, the Bible didn't exist until like a little bit after he died. So I don't know. I mean, this whole premise of sola scriptura is obviously, kind of suspect. But again, I think for like Christians, our point of departure is, yes, it's scripture and tradition, but ultimately, like, it's Jesus as a person, like Jesus as a dynamic presence, someone with whom we enter into a relationship, and like, you know, also like Jesus who is present through the communion of the church. Again, context of this belonging of relationships. So yeah, I mean, I guess there are biblical grounds for the Immaculate Conception if you really reach. All you have to do is like go on, what is it, Catholic Answers or Reddit, and you'll find all those obscure scripture passages. But yeah, I mean, but there are grounds. Personally, I don't like the dogma of Immaculate Conception. Obviously, I accept it as true, but it doesn't resonate with me on like a personal spiritual level. I mean, I tend to find like the Eastern reading of it makes more sense because, again, like, ultimately it's what the dogma is getting at is true, but I think the way it's articulated is like super rationalistic in this Western way, like this way of conceiving, um, no pun intended, of conceiving original sin as like this stain that, if she wasn't protected from it at her conception, then like she can't really be the God bearer. Like, I don't know, it's a very kind of like mechanical way of viewing it, and I think the Eastern sense of accepting like this mystery that, she's a human who was able to contain God within her. Like, they don't say necessarily that, she was born without sin. That, like, from what I understand, but right before she said yes, or right when she said yes to Gabriel, like, that's when she was, all sin was removed from her. Again, I don't know. Like, I ultimately, yes, I accept that she was sinless in the ultimate sense, but again, I don't know. It's a very mysterious thing, so that's why I personally have a hard time with the Immaculate Conception. But again, in terms of your question, I'm sure you'll find some biblical kind of explanation for it. Okay, Oxford Comma has 4 questions. Let's see how quickly we can do all this. In the wake of Liam Payne's death, why do you think certain celebrity deaths affect the cultural zeitgeist? For example, Aaliyah's death seemed to make an impact in the 90s R&B hip hop world. What is your take on untimely deaths of musical geniuses, Prince, Michael, Whitney, Tupac, Biggie, etc.? Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, as someone who's kind of prone to magical thinking, like, I tend to think that, yeah, like, there is something, yeah, there's something sinister about it all. Like, I think, I don't know. I mean, we're never gonna know if there's like actually a satanic ritual sacrifice going on. Um, I don't think it's too far fetched to say that, but I'm not gonna go on the record saying that. But I mean, sure, there are signs that could be happening. No, but on a serious level, I think, like, if you look at it on like an anthropological, psychological level, I think there's this kind of Girardian trope of the scapegoat, of this kind of ritual sacrifice that, like, we hold these idols up to be, kind of demigods. Like we project this kind of desire for fulfillment, this attraction to, that which is beyond the everyday, like something that's quasi transcendent and that is embodied in these figures. And again, like this is something that we talked about in our interview with John Waters, that like, yeah, the singer is a sign of this, humanity striving to the transcendent, but like within the cult of celebrity, if you think of them as actual gods, like, no, they aren't gods. They're humans in search of the transcendent. But yeah, like within this cultural paradigm where we deify the celebrity, um, like we kind of develop this, I don't know, like we start to worship them, but then when we start to perceive that they are human, that they cannot fulfill this desire for salvation, like we start to turn against them. Like we start to look forward to their downfall when we hear about, these public scandals, when we hear about the mental breakdowns or them making a fool of themselves. um, we have this kind of sadistic fascination with them because, again, we're resentful that they didn't present us with this fulfillment. And it's again it like those public scandals become a form of like collective expiation. um, but then, yeah, and then like after something really bad happens, like, okay, after Whitney dies or Michael or Prince, like we start to feel bad, and then we're like, oh, the paparazzi and the media industry, look at what they do to these people, especially the ones who are child stars. But it's like, is it the industry's fault, or is it us who has this like really distorted relationship with them, that we build them up to be gods, we feed off of them, and then we want to purge them, we want to sacrifice them? So I don't know. I think there's definitely something Girardian. Again, I think there is something kind of sinister about like the 27 Club and all this. I don't know. But again, I'm not going to get into that. Okay, next. Can you share with us your process of writing articles from the emergent idea to its publishing? Also, do you overcome the invisible bar of your last great piece of written work? The process depends on the piece. Sometimes I'll get something that like comes to me in the moment, and like the outline immediately just appears in my head, and I just sit there and like hash it all out, and then it's done. That's a rare kind of occurrence. Usually it's like I'll have some insight that's, could be inspired by a tweet that I saw, could be inspired by something that I read. It could be, while I was on the subway, when I was at Reggio, like, I don't know, like all these things could inspire an idea, and then I'll type out some notes, then I'll sit on it for a while, and then eventually I'll start to like, I don't know, like I'll do some more research into it, gather some more sources, and then once I find that like I'm in a place where I can create an actual outline, then I'll sit down and hash it all out. And I find that those ones that like I really sit on for a while and like let them brew over time, like those tend to be the better ones. The quick hot takes can be spicy and fun, but it's not a lot of substance. But yeah, it depends. It depends on each piece. In terms of the invisible bar, I don't know. I mean, like there's some pieces that I reread and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I was really on point. There are others where I was like, yeah, that's kind of embarrassing that that's published on the internet for eternity now. So it depends, but I do have to say, like, as much as it sounds like an exercise in narcissism, like, I do think it's good for writers to reread their work because like, yeah, it's good to pick up on, like, yeah, I did that thing that was really good. Like, I should try to replicate that, or no, I really screwed that up. Let me try to avoid that. So yeah, I think, yeah, that's a good kind of approach. Oxford Comma's third question is regarding the events you host for the pod. Do you think they'd be as well received in other major metropolitan cities? Is there something about the ethos and aesthetic of NYC that makes it fertile ground for the pod charism? Yeah, I mean, the charism of the pod is very NYC because, I mean, one, we're here, but also, like, personally, my heart is in the city, the NY slash NJ area. I don't really like other parts of the country. Yeah, I'm a New York supremacist, unfortunately. Uh, yeah, I mean that's just the truth. And yeah, I don't know. Like our aesthetic is definitely very NYC. So Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we do try to include voices from other parts of the country. We've had a couple of pieces about the Midwest, about Appalachia and all that. But, in terms of the events, like, I just don't think we have much of an audience elsewhere. But if you want to invite us for an event, we'll come do it. If you want to pay for our travel expenses, absolutely. We just had an event in Savannah, Georgia at an Anglican church. So, yeah, but I mean, we're very NYC, but, open to engaging with other cultures, other parts of the country, parts of the world. All right, and then the fourth question. Besides Palio, presumably, who would be in the top three of your desired guests on the pod? I want to get Lohanthony on the pod, as I wrote in a recent Substack piece. So if you have a contact, please let Lohanthony know. That'd be a really fun time. Because he needs, I don't know, I think he needs Cracks and Pomo in his life. I would also like to have Monique, the comedian, who Brennan has written several, or written a piece about, and we've discussed before on several pod episodes. But yeah, I mean, I love Monique. I think, after she was blackballed by Tyler Perry and Oprah and Lee Daniels, I mean, I don't know. It's just such a loss to the industry to have like such a real earthy kind of talent who's not getting any roles. So her, and then if I could resurrect my paternal grandfather, I'd absolutely want to interview him. So much, I don't know. I mean, he's inspired a lot of my work, and there's a lot I would have liked to ask him while he was still alive, which, even if he were alive, like, it's kind of impossible to have a two-way conversation with him because he was kind of like a clinical narcissist, total Lashian case. But yeah, I mean, maybe in heaven I'll interview him. But yeah, other than that, I don't know. I'd like to have Zizek, Cornell West, Matthew Crawford, if Rosalia wants to come on the pod. Would gladly have them on. All right, next. Diego asks, what cigarettes do you smoke? Are you worried about the potential health consequences of what and what do you do to mitigate them? Do you think that the connection between smoking and intellectuals has some significance? Yeah, I mean, we've had 2 episodes on smoking. I wrote something for Catholic World Report on it. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the intellectual thing, absolutely. I mean, I think, yeah, it kind of helps you to like confront this, I don't know, like the threat of mortality, this sense of like crossing over into a barrier. um I don't know, I'm not good at articulating it, but like I do think there's like this very deep existential experience of a nicotine buzz, and again, like the fact that, yeah, it is not good for your health, that like you're saying you're prioritizing something above the earthly, something above the material, the measurable. It's not utilitarian. I don't know. The buzz just feels good. So no, I mean, in terms of which ones I smoke, I mean, I was on American Spirits for several years, the yellow mellows. But then when I was in Italy 2 years ago, I ran out of spirits and I bought Lucky Reds, and I don't know, I kind of liked them, and I just keep buying like cartons of duty free because it's so much cheaper than buying them in New York. But now I don't know, like the additives and the chemicals, like I'm not enjoying the taste and like the feeling like I'm gonna die and get cancer. So I'm trying to get my friends who are anyone who visits Mexico to buy me some yellow spirits from duty free, since they don't sell them at European duty frees. Yeah, I rather have the all natural, the vegan cigarette, as they call it. But yeah, in terms of health, like I don't know. I mean, I only smoke like 2 cigarettes a day on average. I don't recommend getting addicted. I think it's, first of all, it's a waste of money, it's a waste of time, and it's just like morally not good and health wise not good. But yeah, I mean, there's a friend of the Substack who's written for us. I'm not going to say his name, but his father happens to be my doctor. And when I asked him about, or when he asked me about how much I smoke, um, I was like, yeah, 2 or 3 a day. And he's like, oh my God, 2 or 3 packs a day? I was like, no, 2 or 3 cigarettes. He's like, oh, you're fine. You're never going to get cancer. So shout out to that awesome doctor. But yeah, don't get addicted. Just do it, socially do it. a couple times a day, but don't overdo it. All right. Lance asks, how does a person reconcile the aesthetics and lifestyle of suburbia when one's entire world is surrounded by it? My whole family, girlfriend, friends, and church are all suburban. How do I transcend its banality? Yeah, I have a piece coming out about that's actually pro suburbia, little bit of a change of pace. I don't know. I mean, I think if you grow up there, like those are your roots, even though suburbia on an ontological, sociological level sucks. Like if that's your roots, then like I don't know, that's where God shows for you to be. So like you have to kind of find the beauty within it. And I think yeah, like you have to work overtime to overcome like the banality, the atomization, the predictability. Like you have to go out of your way to get to know your neighbors, to, invite them over for stuff, to like do a block party, to be involved in like civic organizations, local politics, to frequent local third places. So yeah, I mean, if you're determined and if you have people who share that desire with you, then like, yeah, I think you can have a beautiful experience in suburbia, but it's definitely harder. Yeah, but again, like I do think like if you're raised there like I was, like there is a value in trying to appreciate your roots and like make the best of it. All right. Last one. Victor asks, I am still confused by the goal of the podcast and its particular name. I'm a huge fan, but is the goal to find cracks in postmodernity or modernity itself? So many articles and guests will critique one or the other, and I am left thinking, wait, are we trying to get back to something more stable, like having religion in society, therefore return to pre-modern times? Or are we tired of living in a postmodern world where nothing matters, things are all relative, etc., and we want to go back to modernity, which at least has societal values? Like, what are we trying to do? Now you can say, well, that's the problem. We don't have clear goals, but that sounds very postmodern to me. Oh my God, this is so long-winded. As we just flail around poking fun at everything, and as we do this, we are detaching ourselves from society, all while still participating in global capitalism. In fact, I would argue what a lot of other much smarter people than me have said, that as we subvert the existing order, we actually serve to supplement it. It's the most postmodern thing we can do. Yeah, I mean, we've heard this kind of critique before. Our So yes, we do have this kind of air of ambiguity, which sure could like totally serve to supplement postmodernism, which is super ambiguous and like ultimately nihilistic. I think it depends on like I don't think our content is ultimately determined by this vagueness or this playfulness. Like yes, our tone is very playful. It's very like ironic and blasé, detached. But if you pay attention to what we're putting out there, no, we are saying something very objective, very substantial that like, you know, is trying to get at the fact that yeah, like there are certain objective truths. It's just that we don't want to communicate them in this explicit kind of plain way because one, that's boring, but also it's harder for people to receive it in a postmodern culture. Like we want to kind of speak the language of the culture we're in. But again, like you have to be astute. You have to be paying attention to like what the common thread is throughout all of our what's we're putting out on our platform. And I again ultimately like if you look at the gospels, like Jesus never gave direct answers. Like he always spoke using parables. Like he was also always very subtle. And this is partially because like he wanted to kind of provoke the person in front of him to like really engage their freedom, engage their reason, their conscience. So like his ambiguity kind of opens this space for people to recognize the answers themselves rather than just saying like this is what you have to do, go do it now or else you're going to hell. This is where we think like postmodernism, as much as it can open the door to complete nihilism, to like kind of dark occultic kind of stuff even, it also opens the door to again this space for ambiguity, for subtlety, for like rediscovering ultimate truths in a way that's much more personal and I don't know, I would say meaningful than modernism allows for. um so yeah, I mean, we're not proposing a solution, we're pointing to the cracks and inviting you to look at them, to kind of recognize the objective truths, the beauty within them. But again, like this strong sense of like wanting whoever's reading or listening to our stuff to like engage their freedom and to look for themselves. Because again, like that is the method Jesus used. And I think most, I don't know, wise people throughout history understood that like you never, like being explicit, being overly kind of direct, like kind of kills the vibe. It kills the, I don't know, the capacity for the individual to really make whatever truth claim their own. So that's the best way we can put it. So thanks to those who sent in their questions. If you do not subscribe to the pod, to the Substack, to Instagram, Twitter, all of the above. We have events coming up in New York. And if you ever want to invite us to do an event wherever you are, we're open to it. Let us know. But thanks for listening to the Q&A pod.